Hey guys, Drax here. I have a lot of hours in ARK, and I've played with many great players. However, one thing's always been unclear to me. Which method is the most efficient and best way to farm metal, especially in the early to mid game? Is it the OG argy Anky? Is it a newer mining drill basilisk? Or is it even just a common crab Anky in Aberration? I decided to go and actually test it out, and I'm going to present to you my findings, along with my favorite pick for the early game and for the late game. For the testing, I asked some of my friends from Official about which methods they thought was the best, and I then compiled a list of 8 options. The first option is argy Anky on Velguro. Then I'm going to check Basilisk with a primitive mining drill. Then Basilisk with a 136% damage mining drill, which is obtainable through Genesis missions. Then I'll check Aberration and Crab, the most common method. And then I'll also check whether or not 2 Ankys whipped around by 2 players is faster. Then late game, when you get the skiff engram, I'm going to check Anky skiff on Aberration. I'm also going to check Anky skiff on Center Redwoods. And lastly, I'm going to check skiff Magma on Aberration. All this being said, let's go beat up some rocks. The variables in these tests have been kept as constant as possible. The Anky has a very average 37 melee damage. The same distribution was applied to the Magma, which resulted in 25 damage. Each scenario was tested 3 times of 4 minutes, and then the average was taken. The mining drill damage was obtained directly from the mission, and the harvesting multiplier was kept constant throughout the testing. And now to the results. The argy Anky method on the Velguro found an average of 7,585 metal over the 4 minutes. This method is by far the fastest to get started with, and is the only one you can do within an hour of wipe. However, you are very slow and out in the open while doing it, and you are an easy target for content creators trying to get some easy clips. A common PvP early game strategy is to get a basilisk and farm using a mining drill. This works as the basilisk has a lot of base weight, as well as the ability to fight back, something that the argy lacks. However, after testing this, we only got 4,587 metal as an average, or around 60% of the argy Anky. The basilisk method also takes more time to set up, as you need to fertilize either rock drake egg or magma egg. Swapping the mining drill out with a 136 damage one increased the metal production to 7,750, or basically the same as the argy Anky. Now to the most common mid-game strategy for farming metal, the Anky and Crab on Aberration. The main advantage is that the crab can move around the Anky even when overweighted, which means you can slot cap the Anky with metal. This method got us 17,600 metal in the 4 minutes as an average, or around 2.5 times the amount that we got with argy and Anky. One of the most dedicated and mentally unstable players that ARK has ever seen, Fanta or Fnatic, once told me that 2 guys whipping around 2 Ankys and solo farming was more efficient than having the crab and the Anky. I had a very hard time believing this, so this is something I wanted to test as well. The main advantage of this strategy is obviously not having to tame a crab or get any gems for the saddle. This being said, the numbers doesn't support the idea that it's more efficient. As an average over the 3 runs, I got 2.5k less raw metal. This could still be a good, reliable early game strategy if you're like me and has never tamed a crab in your life. However, you need an active tribe member that doesn't just put on an auto-clicker and start eating, something that I've never had. Alright, next up is the Center Redwoods, Anky and Skiff. The idea being that perhaps it's more efficient to farm on your main map instead of transferring back and forth from Aberration, especially due to the official timers and the smaller stack sizes. The numbers from the Redwoods test was quite surprising. It only managed 8,674 metal farmed as an average, or 1,100 more than the argy Anky test. This doesn't necessarily mean that it's worse than Crab and Anky on Aberration, due to the large overhead associated with transferring off a map. It can be assumed that if Center is your main map, you have teleporters spread out, and thus can manage 2 runs in the time it would take to do 1 run on Aberration. However, on a pure farming basis, i.e. not having to transfer the materials anywhere, Aberration is much more efficient. Lastly is the skiff Anky and skiff Magma on Aberration. I'm gonna go through this quickly as they're quite self-explanatory. The skiff Anky managed 18,500 as an average over the 3 runs, and the skiff Magma managed 37,700 as an average. This conclusively shows, even with variance in the testing, that the Magma is much more efficient than the Anky in gathering metal, and that the skiff Magma is by far the best option in ARK to get large amounts of metal. There is however an argument to be made about small traps in official servers having mutated the living crap out of Ankies. I'm unable to exert anything about the Magma Anky matchup in small traps on official since I don't know their stats. However, this testing with a uniform distribution of levels shows that once Magmas are mutated to the same level as Ankylos, they should be twice as good. So conclusively, I want to give you my recommendations for early, mid and late game, where late game is after getting a skiff. Early game you just want to go argy and Anky, farm close to your base and somewhat safe, and get settled enough that you can start going into mid game where you get a crab and an Anky and go Aberration. Aberration, crab and Anky is the bread and butter of every PvP server, which means there will be a lot of people down there trying to PvP you, but as long as you keep your eyes open and you have somewhat decent gear, you should be fine. Either way, even if you die half the time, it will still be more efficient than an argy run. Late game, you want to go Aberration with a skiff and magma to farm, if you live on, obviously, Aberration, or Extinction, Crystal Isles, or Genesis. I'm aware that there is metal on these maps, especially near the volcano on Genesis. However, for a very active server, there isn't enough to go around, which is why I recommend you going Aberration instead and take your chances. If you do not live on any of the aforementioned maps, I recommend you stay on your own server and farm in any of the locations on screen. If you enjoyed this video and want me to break down other ARK game mechanics or myths, please subscribe and comment down below what you want me to look into.